Hello everybody, and before today's video, I just wanted to give a huge shout out to TeePublic because Teespring has been having some issues with my shirts where they have not been telling me about sales that have been going on that I know have been going on because people have told me they bought the shirt and they've been showing me the purchases that they've made, but it hasn't been showing up on my end. And so I don't know what's going on there. I'm still trying to get back with them, but in the meantime, I went ahead and started a store over on TeePublic because I've kind of want to diversify anyway. And right now, there's actually a really good sale going on the website for the next 36 hours. You have $13 t-shirts there. $13 t-shirts. You can get an Odin's movie blog t-shirt for $13. You can also get a hoodie. You can get a kid's t-shirt. You can also get a mug. It also comes with a lot of things like phone cases, laptop cases, magnets, tank tops. They've got pretty much everything in the standard Odin's movie blog logo with my favorite color, green. So go ahead and check that out. You got some different phone options here. Most of them are iPhones. You do get some Galaxy options as well. But anyway, check out the merchandise. I'd appreciate it. Support the channel. Check the link in the description. All right, now for the video. Hello everybody and welcome back to Odin's movie blog. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope we're doing well, and today we're going to be talking about some DCEU movie news, including the Joker's box office update and also a new report from our friends over at Bounding Into Comics. But first, let's talk about the Joker. The Joker is doing extremely well financially still, and something tells me that this weekend will be yet another top 3 movie release for the box office. I think it's definitely going to be at least number 3, maybe number 2. There's even a world in which it could get to number 1. That I honestly do think that Disney has enough power and has enough control behind it, especially since its release is likely going to be also in China, which it is, of course, because, you know, they get all the China releases, unlike Joker or other studios. It's interesting how that relationship works out, especially with all the new information that we've been getting recently, with everything going on with the NBA, South Park, calling out the NBA, calling out Disney and their relations with the Chinese government. It's been a beautiful thing to see because someone who is very much pro-freedom, and this channel being very much pro-freedom, loves to be able to throw China under the bus whenever I possibly can. So with all that being said, of course, the government, not the people, because people are much different. Let's talk about the Joker. So Joker currently at this point in time is sitting at $208.9 million. That means that Joker will indeed surpass the Justice League's domestic total. That is very, very good news for Joker. It's really not that hard to do because Justice League was actually, for all intents and purposes, a box office failure when you look at how much money they put into the film, how much money it cost to promote the film, and how much money it ended up making in the long run. It definitely was one of the lowest grossing films that has been put out in the DC universe. The fact that Joker is now about to pass that up domestically and also in its foreign total is very, very impressive. It still has a ways to go to beat some of the other ones. There's a very good chance that not only will it pass Justice League, but also it could potentially pass up 1989 Batman as well. Of course, that's before adjusting for inflation. And then not too long after that, passing up things like Man of Steel. I think that there's a chance it could definitely get to Suicide Squad levels of the domestic total. What's really going to make a difference for the film is its foreign total, which we'll get into in a second. But as you can see up here, it's now cracked the top 10 of highest grossing DC films, DC comic films in history when you look at the domestic totals. This is, of course, before you adjust for inflation. When you do adjust for inflation, it drops down to 17, but then you start to understand just how close it is to passing up some of these films. So not only will it finally, thank goodness for this weekend, it definitely will pass up Batman and Robin, one of the worst, arguably one of the worst Batman films of all time. Though there is a special place in my heart for it because it is just downright hilarious how bad it is. But it definitely will not only pass up Batman and Robin, but it has a very good chance, as I said before, passing up Justice League. Even Superman Returns is in its sights. Batman Begins is in its sights. Man of Steel, Aquaman, Suicide Squad. These are all movies that it could definitely pass up in its domestic total by the end of its run. It could do even better than that. So you're looking at a film that likely will get at least in the top 10 for the U.S. domestic market, which is very impressive for not only a DC film, but also for a rated R DC film. Out of all the movies on this list, it is the only one that's rated R, which means it has a much more limited audience that it can reach out to. And the fact that it's doing as well as it's doing is truly amazing. And I honestly cannot be more proud of this film because of how well it is doing and how it's reaching to audiences and how audiences themselves, because of word of mouth campaigns, are really helping this film do better. I think there's a lot of second, third showings that people are going to, but also I think really the tremendous amount of media coverage that this film has gotten has surpassed so many other films that I think that has had a huge impact on people going to see it at the box office. So still very good to see it here. When you go to the worldwide totals, these are unadjusted because it's very hard to get firm numbers for other countries because other countries work very differently in their financial sectors, especially China, since China likes to control its currency, likes to put these, I mean, seriously, it's pretty bad there. It's pretty bad there when you look at it, but overall, it's very hard to have a worldwide adjusted total because I would say mostly of China. But when you go ahead and look to that, you see that Joker has already cracked into the top 9. It already is in the top 9 films. Justice League made $657 million worldwide. This film is likely going to pass that up after this weekend, making it one of the highest grossing films in the modern DC era. And it's not going to be long after that I think it has a good chance of passing up Man of Steel, Suicide Squad, even Wonder Woman, BVS, and could even get close to The Dark Knight. Now remember, those are unadjusted numbers because it's much harder to adjust. However, that's still very impressive that a rated R film like The Joker is being able to do that. Now, where do I get that $900 million number from? Well, remember, I did a box office breakdown for Geeks and Gamers and also for the main channel here. And I talked about how if we assume that the film has made even at most or at least 60% of its entire run, so let's say that the rest of the film, let's say that it's made 60% of what it eventually will make by the end of its theatrical run. If it's at that number, if it's at 60%, it means that the film will end up grossing around $900 million. So that would put it worldwide. That would put it, again, above Batman v Superman, and would put it, again, close to the $1 billion mark. There is a snowball's chance that the film could be closer to the 50% mark. If it's closer to making 50% in its first 2 weeks, which is possible, though it's a lot harder to do, then it could definitely come to the point where at max it would make around $1.1 billion. And so you're looking at a range here from around $900 million, or around roughly $900 million, to roughly around $1.1 billion. Now, if this film is able to break the $1 billion mark, I will be extremely happy for so many reasons. One, because it's a great film that deserves to be seen, that deserves the recognition that it's getting. It'll also be one of the first films in history to make that much money as a rated R film, and also it will, and you know that I'm going to love this, it will knock off potentially one of the damn Disney movies that had no business being in the $1 billion club this year, and that, of course, you know, would make me extremely happy. So Joker has been doing incredibly well. Let's go ahead and pull this up. So Joker, as you can see, $601.8 million. It's doing incredibly well. $55 million budget. Keep that in mind, guys. $55 million budget to make this film. When you compare that to some of the others, let's go ahead and compare it to a film that it's likely going to pass up very soon in the foreign market. Or rather, not Batman vs. Superman, though I think that's definitely a good example of one that it will probably pass up closer to the end of its run. But Justice League, right? Justice League, we don't even have a budget, right? But to the Justice League budget, it's not going to be hard to find. So Justice League production budget. I like doing these things live because I think it's very important to really provide that context and to show that I'm not trying to spin anything here. $300 million. That is without marketing. As we say, the rule of thumb is that 50% of this number you then add to this number, and that's likely what was spent. They likely spent around $150 million on marketing for this movie. That means that the movie cost $450 million to make. Roughly around that ballpark. The film worldwide made $657. Keep in mind that most studios only keep about 60% of that total. And now you start to see why when this film came out for first time, I was very clear saying this movie is a box office failure. And a lot of people were looking at the numbers saying, oh, but look at how much money it's making. But they failed to remember that it costs money to make the film, meaning that the film was essentially operating in the red and it needed to make up that money. Now, did it make up the money over time? Absolutely. It's been a couple of years. They've definitely made it back in Blu-ray, 4K sales, and obviously the TV deals that they've made at this point in time. Those obviously add up and make money over time. But $300 million for your production, $450 million total, and you only made $657? Compare that again. A film that is going to make probably close to $200 to $300 million more than this movie cost only $55 million production budget, around $75 or $80 million when you add in marketing. That's a difference of $220 million. It cost $220 million less to make Joker than it did for Justice League, and yet Joker is the one that's going to get to the $900 million range when this film couldn't even get to $700 million. That is incredible. Again, hatred of Justice League and the Zack Snyder movies aside, which again, I've been very clear about how I feel about those movies. All that aside, Joker is such a solid film. Joker is a very successful film. And there's some people speculating that could it be that we might get China give into some pressure and say, hey, we want to get some of that cheddar too, because they end up getting a lot of money from the deals that they make. They end up getting around 80% or so of the box office totals there. I mean, they normally are able to work out deals so that the people that own the movie, like for example, Disney or Warner Brothers, if they have a movie that comes out in China, the studio only sometimes gets 20-25% of the box office. So when you see those giant numbers out of China, China is getting most of that money. So if this film is doing as well as it is, they might be stupid to pass up on it. But why are they passing up on it? Well, we could obviously look to everything going on in Hong Kong right now. We can obviously look to everything going on there. And we can imagine that they don't want a movie like Joker coming out because it hasn't gotten past their censors. That's for damn sure. And why hasn't it gotten past their censors? Because they know that it will likely inspire people to actually try and do something. Now, some people might try and say, well, aren't you trying to say then that the movie promotes violence? No. The movie does definitely represent social unrest, and keep in mind that when you're living in a country like China where they control every single thing that comes into your country, they control Google, they only allow you to see what they want you to see, you can imagine why, if they see the movie as we have seen it in the States and in other countries, why that would probably be problematic, because when you live in a controlled society, that is when a movie could have an impact. That is when a movie could potentially inspire people to act out, because obviously you're dealing with a very controlled scenario in that situation. And if you have a difference of opinion on that, please let me know in the comment section below. But again, it is amazing how well this film is doing. It's amazing that it's being able to make the amount of money that it's making, that it's likely going to get close to $700 million this weekend alone, and that there's a very good chance, especially if they ever do end up giving it a release in China, which I really doubt at this point because of the reasons I gave earlier, that the film could get to that billion-dollar mark even without China. To me, that is probably the biggest feat, is the fact that this is a film that could potentially get to that number. And that's why I would say go and see this movie. If you've seen it already and you loved it, go see it again. Go see it on the IMAX screen. If you have a Dolby theater near you and it's still playing in Dolby, and for some reason, man. And I always hate to be the anti-Disney channel, but that's kind of what you expect from me at this point, because I have a lot of problems with Disney for a lot of legitimate reasons. And the fact that we've got a freaking film, Maleficent 2, which has no reason to have a sequel to it if you go towards the original story and how they changed it a little bit because they wanted to leave it open for a sequel, because that's all that these giant studios care about. Thank you, Francis Ford Coppola, for at recent events saying, yeah, well, you know what? Godfather couldn't be made today because they would look at that and say, oh, we can't make a franchise out of that. Even though we got a film that might have been equally better in Godfather 2, they would have wanted Godfather 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And because of that, he says, and I think it's very accurate, that the studio likely would not have taken the risk on that film, even though it didn't cost nearly as much as some of their bigger budget superhero films would have cost anyway. And I think that that's the reason why this film is so damn important. And if this film is able to show that you don't need Chinese money to make $1 billion, if this film is able to show that you can make a good movie, you can make a movie that's not made to start a franchise, even though I think that there's definitely a lot of people behind the scenes at Warner Bros. Right now saying, oh my God, we need to make this a franchise. We've captured lightning in a bottle. Let's do something with it. I'm hoping that because of the people behind it, like Todd Phillips, Joaquin Phoenix, etc., that because of their passion, because of their love of filmmaking, and legitimate filmmaking at that. I know there's going to be people in the comment section saying, what do you mean legitimate? The Marvel movies are legitimate. I give total praise to everyone that's working in the technical aspects behind that film. Absolutely. But the writing room, the production room, like the producers, it's lazy. It's lazy storytelling. And people are buying into it. People are buying into it and allowing it to be the thing that they see and the only thing that they see, and it's leading to other films failing. That's why this film is so damn important for so many different reasons. And the last bit of news about the DC Universe, since I did say we talk about something else, is that there's a report now that Jonah Hill has passed on Matt Reeves Batman. This could be a decision that ends up haunting him for the rest of his life. We know that there's been a lot of movies in history that big name actors passed up on and ended up being giant hits. There's no guarantee that Matt Reeves Batman will be good. But obviously, with especially the current era of Joker being as good as it was with Todd Phillips behind the camera, it seems very likely that Matt Reeves' Batman is in a very good position to be a very good film. But obviously, Jonah Hill has the ability to choose his projects, and if this is indeed what he wants, I think that's a good choice. However, I am also kind of happy that he's not going to be the Riddler, which is what many people speculated he was going to be. A lot of reports were that he was going to be the Riddler, and I'm kind of glad that's the case because I think that he would have done the role fine. But he's not like a Joaquin Phoenix, where as soon as Joaquin Phoenix was announced for Joker, I said, no, he is Joker. he can do that role. It'd be nice to see someone else like a Joaquin Phoenix who's able to handle that type of, maybe not necessarily method type acting, but at least like almost on the borderline of it. When you're in the scene, you're in the scene. I think it'd be really cool to have that character as, if you're going to have Riddler, or any of the other characters that they decide to have for this franchise. But let me know your thoughts about this. What do you think about the news of Jonah Hill passing on Matt Reeves Batman? Do you think it's a good decision for him? Do you think it's a bad decision for him? Again, I think only time will tell when it comes down to it. And also with Joker. What do you think Joker is going to end up doing this weekend? I think that's important for us to look to the box office projections for this weekend, because I think that Joker could potentially be top 2. There's even a place where it could possibly even get number 1. But as I said before, Disney's machine is just so powerful that even though Maleficent 2 is getting really bad reviews, even from critics at this point, I think that it's a film that will likely bring out enough of the audiences, especially the younger audiences, the kids, the families, where you'll end up starting to see those happen. So let's see, box office projections. Let's see if we can get those up here so that way we can at least talk about them before the weekend starts. Let's see, box office projections, Box Office Pro tracking and forecast. Do we have it? So let's see here. Currently, the box office tracking is $36 to $46 million for Maleficent, Zombieland 2 to $24 to $29 million. The current projection is that Maleficent will make $40 million over the weekend, and Joker will come in at number 2 at $32 million. I think that's a very good indication that Joker is doing very strong. The fact that it'll be a 43% drop from last weekend, early projections indicate that's a very low drop. So that means it would have 2 straight weeks of 43% drops in a row. That's very strong. That's very powerful. As I said before, it's going to lead to the film passing up some of the other films in the DC universe, and it's going to lead to it getting even closer to that $900 million minimum that I honestly think it's going to make. But look at those numbers. Let's say Mistress of Evil, because of bad word of mouth, is not able to get to that $40 million number. What if it is on the lower end? What if it gets closer to that $36 million total? And what if Joker overperforms? There is a world where Joker could come in and three-peat at number 1 at the box office. It's a long shot because the Disney machine is powerful. But if people like you and people like me say, hey, you know what? Screw Disney. Screw this cookie-cutter nonsense that we keep getting, the nonstop sequels, the nonstop prequels, the nonstop mess of our modern day cinema, and support films that are actually well done, well thought out, well written, well acted, and are not there simply to create a new franchise, but are there to simply be good movies. And also, of course, you see Gemini Man continues to tank, which is to no surprise to anyone here. But anyway, let me know your thoughts about this in the comment section below of what you think is going to get number 1 at the box office this weekend. And also, if you think Joker is going to pass up any other films in the DC franchise this weekend. Obviously, I think that's going to pass up a lot as it continues to make money. But of course, that still remains to be seen. Anyway, let me know your thoughts about this stuff and all the stuff we talked about in the comment section below. If you like this video, smash the like button, give me a subscribe. It helps me out a lot. You are all amazing and beautiful people. Have a wonderful day. And as always, God bless.